opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Chapman.
Yes, Chair.
N.
And
N.
Move receipt of the report.
Director Wally, discussion?
Mr. Chair, we have a presentation by the consultant, and Robin and Sheena will support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Sluda with RC Strategies. I'm the consultant that was retained by the SRD to support them with looking at a few different regional recreation funding situations, and happy to have the opportunity here to present to all of you today. In terms of the overview of the presentation, really kind of four things that we're looking to do here. The first is just to give you a little bit of background and context on the study. Secondly, just talk about a few key considerations in the delivery of recreation services. And then the third item there is look at some more specific considerations and some analysis specific to the gardens. And then lastly, the conclusions and recommendations. So, a bit of background and context on the study. So, our firm worked on a regional recreation feasibility study in 2024, and that ultimately suggested that there were two facilities that warranted consideration for sub-regional funding. And also important to and relevant to the conversation is that study also identified that there was not kind of rationale for a broader overall fully regional recreation service delivery model or a fully regional facility, but there were two facilities that warranted some consideration for sub-regional funding, and the gardens along with the Kelsey Centre were those two facilities. And really that was based on a preliminary calculation of a large proportion of residents living in a non-contributing area within a 45-minute proximity of the facility. Ultimately, then, the study was tasked with further exploring whether there's sufficient rationale to support a more equitable funding model for the garden and what that model for the garden could potentially be. I just want to touch on a few considerations in the delivery of recreation services. So this is, I guess, so to speak, the sandbox that our firm plays in. We do parks, rec, sport trails planning. So we talk about these kind of things quite a bit. And I just wanted to introduce two realms of community benefits because I think it's important to the conversation and what you're considering here through this work. So there's really kind of two levels of benefits for the provision of public sector recreation services. So, why do we subsidize and invest in public recreation services? It's to deliver a level of benefit. Now, there are direct benefits. Those are accrued by the user. So someone goes to the gym, they benefit directly. That would be probably the most easy example of a direct benefit. But ultimately, the provision of recreation services is looking to achieve the most indirect benefits. And those are accrued by all residents in a community regardless of whether they use the facility or the service or not. So and on the next slide, we'll get into some examples of indirect benefits. But ultimately, we're putting kind of a paradigm around indirect benefits as those that are accrued by residents in an entire area. And that is ultimately the rationale for the delivery of public recreation and parks and related services are those indirect benefits at the end of the day. So what are some of those benefits? There's a number of them, and I mean, I won't go through kind of all the ones on the slide there. I think some of those are pretty intuitive, but just to touch on a couple, kind of the third box from the left there. Recreation services, beyond just providing, making people healthy and kind of wellness in a community, there is data to support that recreation services also help attract and retain residents to a region. They help sort of make a community a place where people want to move to, and ultimately there's kind of a broader benefit of having certain skill sets in a community. Doctors, teachers, nurses, and engineers, and so on. We know that recreation helps lead to a broader social and healthcare benefit as well. So investing in recreation services has a downstream impact of saving us money in that regard is to improve safety, community connectedness. So in the study, for those that are interested in digging into this a little bit more, we have a sampling of some research that speaks to some of those broader benefits of recreation services. So that kind of brings us into looking a little bit more specifically at what is a sub-regional facility. So just think it's kind of important to sort of start off here and put some context around this, that there is no standardized or legislated approach in British Columbia for funding recreation services. It would be awesome if there was. It would make all of our jobs a lot easier. And this is something that most regional districts struggle with, is determining a regional recreation funding model or just a funding model in general for recreation. So recognizing that there isn't kind of a legislated or mandated point of reference for funding services, ultimately regional districts and municipalities need to answer kind of two fundamental questions when they're looking at what is a sub-regional facility. They have to look at their own kind of geographic context and determine what characteristics distinguish a facility as being sub-regional. And then they also need to try to come up with some common understanding of a fair and reasonable way to determine what that funding area or benefiting area is for that facility. And totally recognize that that is subjective and somewhat qualitative. There isn't a magic bullet for determining that. And like I said, every regional district to some degree struggles with making that calculation. So that brings us to Strathcona Gardens. And as I mentioned, the 2024 Regional Recreation Feasibility Study identified Strathcona Gardens as a sub-regional facility. So really through the work that we did, wanted to kind of advance that and sort of revalidate if that was the case. And ultimately, we would conclude that it passes a reasonable threshold as being a sub-regional facility for a couple reasons, 3 reasons in particular. One is the provision of indoor aquatics. So indoor aquatics of all the amenity types has kind of the highest level of catchment across ages, as well as the provision of different types of service opportunities, recreation opportunities. It provides rehabilitative opportunities, variety of ages and interests use the pool. So an indoor aquatics facility of the scale that exists at Strathcona Gardens is one distinguishing characteristic that makes it kind of a regional hub facility. Building on that a little bit, Strathcona Gardens just in general has a hub of different amenity types. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's the pool, there's the arena, there are the other spaces. There isn't another kind of singular sort of grouping of facilities in the region like the gardens. And then the third characteristic, which we'll get a little bit into on the following slides, is just the level and characteristics of visitation. So it draws from kind of a broader catchment area, and that would make it rationalize it as a sub-regional facility as well. So that brings us to kind of looking at the garden's use and visitation. And I just want to kind of put some context around this slide and the next couple slides that whenever you're looking at visitation for a facility, it's complex and it's really hard to just sort of break out, X percent of uses from this area. It really depends on how you look at it. Are we looking at overall use? Are we looking at use for specific types of programs? The jurisdictions on Vancouver Island that do use use as a way to sort of allocate or apportion funding responsibility, they themselves struggle with determining how to calculate use, which makes using utilization of a facility is somewhat a problematic way to calculate a responsibility for funding. But nonetheless, we did, with the team at the Gardens, take a fairly deep dive into utilization. And on the screen there is just reflecting kind of in the middle column there, use by Campbell River and Electoral D residents, so currently contributing residents. And then in the next column over is looking at the percent of individuals that reside outside of the current contributing area. And you can see there that fairly significant by folks outside of the contributing area. of those folks that don't currently contribute to the facility that live within the SRD, Electoral Area C residents comprise about 66% of those accounts. And again, accounts is different than overall utilization, but that's just one way to look at overall levels of utilization. Another way that we wanted to try to explore utilization a little bit is using a technology called movement data or mobility data. So essentially you can purchase this data. It tracks mobility devices and then there's an algorithm that kind of right sizes it based on the proportion of people that carry mobility devices versus not. So interesting way for us to try to look at broader use. Now it is limited to track by kind of very specific like electoral areas, but it does give us a sense and helps build out the rationale a bit for the Gardens as a sub-regional facility. So just to run through a few of the metrics that we garnered through that movement mobility data that we procured from a third-party vendor. We looked at frequent versus infrequent use. About 12% of total adult visitors use the facility more than 10 times per year, so we consider those frequent users. And that would leave us, about 88% that are infrequent users. They're visiting the facility less than 10 times per year. Consistency of visitation, pretty consistent throughout the year, between about 4,400 and 6,100 adult visits per month. And I say adult visits because the movement data only looks at adult visitors. It doesn't track youth for privacy reasons. The third point there, quite a bit of distance travel to the facility. So the average distance of travel for an adult visitor to the Gardens is 35 kilometers. Now about 61% are within about 5 kilometers, but that leaves about 30.1% that are more than 5 kilometers. But on average, about 35 kilometers is the distance of travel for an annual visit to the facility. And the average, kind of more of a point of interest, but the average adult facility visit lasts 47 minutes. So that's kind of the duration of time that people are generally at the facility. So that brings us kind of moving along into some funding area considerations. And we did look at a handful of precedents, and there's some information on this in the study as well for those that are interested. There's no like for like community or situation. I think that's important to clarify or to confirm. But we did want to get a sense of how regional funding goes on in kind of other jurisdictions. So the majority of other regional districts on Vancouver Island, I would say, have a much more robust regional recreation funding model than exists in the SRD currently. Obviously, the SRD is a relatively new regional district, and to some degree, that probably is the reason why that model hasn't been further built out. The second point I think is kind of important to touch on as well, which is that regional funding models are typically initiated or introduced to support major recreation infrastructure. And to that point, rarely is that ever a clean situation that starts from a place of no baggage, where everybody walks away happy with the model that's introduced at the end of the day. We've had the opportunity to support numerous regional districts across the province and on the island with sort of figuring out what a fair and appropriate regional funding model might be. And they usually do end up just coming to some sort of recognition or not around kind of the benefit that the facility provides, and essentially recognizing or agreeing to the fact that a facility meets that regional or sub-regional threshold and provides an essential service, and much the same rationale that we would use for other services like libraries and even more critical services like hospitals and fire and so on. Sorry, let's go back to the last point here. The garden, I think another key point here is that the Gardens draws on a smaller funding area than most other comparable facilities of its size. And we put a few examples here on the slide of some similar kind of facility hubs. Some of them are spread across multiple locations, some are not. So Ravensong Aquatic Centre in Parksville, as well as the Ravensong is in Qualicum and Oceanside Place in Parksville, the two facilities in Comox, and then the Cowichan Valley Regional District has 9 facilities that they consider regionally significant that are funded regional. And another point here to make with these examples is that they all use different methods to kind of apportion funding responsibilities. So Ravensong, Oceanside, so RDN, and the Cowichan Valley, they use utilization as their primary way to apportion responsibility. Comox Valley uses primarily assessment. In the study, if you really want to dig into sort of these models, Table 2 provides some other examples. So Panorama Rec Center on the Saanich Peninsula uses a mix of population distribution and assessment. Juan de Fuca Rec Center uses assessment. So there's a number of different methods that are used to apportion funding responsibility. But ultimately, all of these facilities are supported by a much broader kind of funding area than currently exists here for the gardens. So looking at kind of access and benefit, kind of bringing it back to sort of what that might mean for a funding model for the gardens here. Important to recognize that obviously the SRD has a unique geographic context. Not everybody in the region can access facilities, even in the same form of transportation. We've kind of concluded through the work that it's probably not reasonable to include the entirety of Electoral Area C in a model for the gardens, just given some of those dynamics. But the data would suggest that kind of generally speaking, Quadra Island is part of an Electoral Area C service catchment area. And obviously there's a number of different ways to look at that. There's kind of physical proximity. There's some of the data from BC Ferries. Recognizing that none of these is sort of a single indicator of that, but kind of collectively they would suggest that it's probably worth considering Quadra Island as part of kind of the broader Campbell River catchment area for a variety of services, not just recreation, but all the services that recreation contributes to by attracting and retaining key skill sets. So that brings us to some conclusions here. Again, as we've touched on earlier on, and certainly which the study touches on, recreation services have an irrefutable benefit to a community and a broader region. The data and the research all supports that. As we mentioned and talked about, the gardens provides a regional benefit, and we would suggest that that's not currently captured by its current funding model, and that the facility is supported by a much smaller catchment area than a lot of comparator facilities on Vancouver Island and beyond. And that there are also numerous examples of regional recreation funding models that draw from multiple outlining communities and electoral areas based on benefits rationale, so beyond just simply utilization, and that the SRD is a bit of an outlier in not having a more developed regional recreation funding model. A few other conclusions here. We would suggest that direct use is not a singularly representative indicator of benefits accrued through a facility. And it's also, just to add on to that, using utilization is a really hard way to attribute responsibility for funding. It's hard to kind of track utilization on an ongoing basis. So kind of functionally or mechanically, it's a challenging model to use. Oh, sorry. And we'd also, as we mentioned earlier on, that Quadra Island has a level of functional proximity to Campbell River, and we would suggest reasonably benefits from the provision of quality of life services in the city directly or indirectly. So bringing that to the recommendations that the study outlines. Firstly, better refine the funding area for the gardens to better reflect the areas that it benefits, so create a little bit more alignment between the kind of facilities catchment area and its benefiting area. Within Electoral Area C, limit the expanded funding area to Quadra Island. So if there is a decision to move forward with expanding the funding area, and that's obviously not the consultant's decision to make, but if that decision does occur, that it should be limited to Quadra Island for the gardens, and that the community hall service area could be kind of a precedent for doing that. And then lastly, utilization should not be the sole or primary point of reference from which to determine financial contributions for some of those reasons I mentioned. Doesn't reflect benefit and is kind of mechanically challenging to do on an ongoing basis. And then SRD staff did a kind of a very preliminary high-level calculation of what some of those impacts might be, and certainly staff can speak more to the methodology and rationale here. But you can see on the screen sort of the calculation of the average contribution per home should should Quadra Island be included in kind of the future move forward funding model for the gardens. So that concludes the presentation, and I think the team's happy to take any questions.
Director Rice.
thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. This has been a long time waiting. It's quite interesting that your report highlighted on what I've been talking about for the last 3 years, is that SRD is well behind other regional districts in terms of funding recreation. And this has been a question that my constituents have been asking for a long time. Why are we the only electoral area paying? That said, I'm also very happy to see in this report that this is more than just a pool in an arena. There are other benefits that the Gardens brings, and it's about time that gets acknowledged. So I'm quite happy to see this report, and it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the discussion is. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, thank you very much for your presentation.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Sorry, I can't see you. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Von Esch.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the report. Just a question. One of the confusing things for me is that I don't really see how much Quad actually uses the recreation center. It sounds like that's difficult to understand. So just curious why there wasn't a survey in the community to understand some data of actually how many people are using it and what the utilization rate is.
Base the stats on utilization. We took a snapshot in time, and it was based on existing accounts within the Strathcona Gardens, and then it took a little bit of time to filter out to make sure there was no duplicate accounts, but it's all based on our booking software. This is not based on utilization because lots of people come in and pay cash, but the stats are based on the current accounts at Strathcona Gardens in a snapshot of time.
Okay, so what is the data for what is the utilization rate for Quadra? Do we actually know?
66% of areas outside of Campbell River and Electoral D is from Quadra Island.
So 66% of the users who visit
Sorry, folks. Excuse me, gallery?
We all pay cash.
Gallery? Okay, if you can't be quiet, you'll have to leave the meeting. Thank
So
you.
sorry, thanks, Chair. So you're saying that 66% of the people who visit Strathcona Gardens who come from outside of Area D or Campbell River come from Quadra?
No, I think what he said was 66% of the accounts from people that register for programs come from Area C.
So,
Not
yeah,
users.
doesn't-
People that use the facility, whether they're paying cash or debit or something else, don't declare where they're from. There's thousands of users a month, and you're not collecting data from somebody that comes in to use the facility. So if there's programs that they're registering for, we have accounts. The data says that 66% of the accounts from usage outside of Campbell River and Area D are from Area C.
And how many accounts are there?
Excuse me, sir,
Mr. Chair, can I just add to that quickly?
please.
Yeah, so I think this herein lies kind of the challenge of using utilization as a way to look at apportioning funding responsibility, because it's really challenging to do. There's 2 jurisdictions, regional districts on Vancouver Island that solely use utilization, the RDN and the Cowichan Valley Regional District. And the way they do that, just to give everybody a sense of methodology, is every 5 years they undertake a very robust study to determine utilization by every electoral area. And I'm familiar with this methodology because we do it for those 2 jurisdictions, or we have in the past. And it requires like intercept surveying of people that are coming in for drop-ins. It requires getting very detailed breakdowns from groups in terms of like Area I versus Area J for minor soccer, so on and so on. So it's a very labor-intensive process to do, and that data gets challenged even when we do those studies for utilization. So it's a really challenging exercise. So the team worked really hard just to come up with a few stats to try to get a sense of kind of general utilization.
That's why we're all
Okay,
here.
thank you. The 66% of plans, how many plans are there?
So the stats show for Area C, it's 944, that's 935 individual accounts and 9 organizational accounts.
Okay, so that stat comes from just a tiny amount of users. Thank you. I just had one more question around access, or reasonable access. Your previous report said that everywhere on Quadra Island is 45 minutes away from the recreation center. Coming from Cortez Island and traveling that route for 25 years, I know the ferry takes 20 minutes. I know it takes 10 minutes once you land in Campbell River to get to the front doors of the recreation center, so that's 30 minutes. And then, everybody lives on an island, shows up at least 15 minutes early before the ferry so that you can catch it. So that's 45 minutes. So it seems like, the only people who are 45 minutes away are the people who live right beside the ferry.
Yeah, through the chair, yeah. Very, very astute point, correct point. So in the 2024 study, what we wanted to do is just do some preliminary analysis, and there's some limitations. Like, it was a GIS-based analysis, which has some limitations. So that's what kind of flagged the fact that a deeper dive needed to be looked at, why the 2024 study didn't recommend at that point in time any inclusions. It just generally identified areas where people might have a higher level of access pending further review.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I'm really interested in the whole thing, but in particular the cell phone analysis. I found that was really interesting. I don't have a volume switch here, but I can lean into my mic. I was really interested in the cell phone data analysis, as you called it, movement data sampling. And in the report, it says that it shows there was over 62,000 total adult visitations in 2024. 74% of those were derived from the entire Strathcona region. And approximately 13% of visits and 12% of visitors were from the Comox Valley and Nanaimo regions. And then it also states that between 2018 and 2025, over 8 years that we were just discussing, the gardens had 944 clients from Area C. So when I do the math, I'm just wondering if that means that 1.5% of adult users are from Area C. The data page actually states that 16% of visits are from over 100 kilometers away.
Yeah, through the chair, the data, that the table that has kind of the breakdown by electoral area is not from the movement data. That's from the work that the team at the Gardens did. So that's not, you can't like kind of mix and match that data. The movement data was kind of solely trying to get a sense of kind of overall visitation, and we were hopeful that it might be able to break out visitation by specifically Quadra Island residents, and it wasn't able to at the end of the day. Like, we didn't feel that data was accurate enough, so it wasn't included.
And just a follow-up, could you explain the cell phone sampling? Like, I'm curious,
Yeah.
was it done for all of 2024, or was it a specific time frame and extrapolated? What can you share a little bit more of the process?
Yeah, you bet, Chair. We buy it from a vendor called Propulso.
Oh, I can't hear anything.
Oh, sorry. How about now? Okay, sorry.
you go.
Yeah, so we purchased the data from a vendor. There's a bunch of vendors. The one we use for this is called Propulso. We buy it for a calendar year, so 2024. So they purchase data from telecommunication companies. It's limited to adults, as I mentioned, and then they have kind of a approach to sort of right-sizing it based on the percentage of people that carry cell phones with them or not. So, I mean, I'm not, like, there's kind of a whole sort of back-end methodology to it, but essentially we purchase that data, and we're able to sort of, it provides sort of a data set that we're able to look at some of the analytics and break it out by SRD versus non-SRD and some of the other metrics that are in the report.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Okay, Director Rice?
Thank you, Chair. I know that there's been some questions around usage, and I do want to be very clear that in Area D, if you take a look at our demographics, well over half of our population are over 65, for starters. When we talk about usage, we actually have 50 properties up in Upper Campbell Lake that don't even have hydro that pay into this service. And they're up at Upper Campbell Lake. there might be only 1 or 2 residents that actually use the facility. So we got to be very careful how we talk about usage. And again, I go back and look in my own community. I mean, I've never gone to the gardens myself, but I understand the value that it brings for the families and the children. And I think that if you went back and talked to a lot of my area residents, they would say the same thing, that they are doing this for the younger families. So let's keep that in mind when we're actually questioning the usage. Thank you.
On receipt. All in favor?
I just had one more question, Chair.
Sorry, I just had another question too.
Go ahead, Director Mooney.
Thank you. It was really a question about the ferry statistics as being, you know, a metric for deciding that we had like functional, like, et cetera, access, I think is what the report said. Because I'm just not sure if you're aware that there's a significant percentage of the ferry traffic that is from Quadra or using the Quadra ferry, which is also coming from Cortez or heading to Cortez, right? So as well as a high number of students, not just limited even to high school students. So just wondering if there was consideration for those extraneous facts when you were using the ferry data.
Yeah, through the chair. Sorry, can you hear me?
No, plug it in. How about now? Just push it.
How about now?
I can hear you.
Testing. Testing. Yeah, through the chair. The question was on the ferry data. There's no one perfect metric to determine what kind of a benefiting or a service area is in any jurisdiction. So just by referencing the ferry data in the report, that just simply reflects that there is some significant level of migration between Quadra Island and Campbell River. I mean, BC ferries, they obviously wouldn't have the data for kind of where people go beyond that. So can't really speak to what proportion. It'd be great if we knew out of that kind of what proportion is specifically Quadra Island residents versus not. We don't know that information. So I can't really speak to the BC ferries data other than it was the second highest miners route amongst all the miners route. And you know, the most recent report identified 10,000 round trips a year, which is quite significant. But again, no further breakdown of that information. But again, just not one kind of specific reference point, but it is one of many that shows that it is part of a broader catchment area.
Okay, on receipt, Director Vanish.
So, thank you. I think Director Davis had a question. He can go before me.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for your presentation. The question I got is when people pay to enter these services, are you aware of any areas where people pay an extra fee if they're not part of the service area?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, there's a number of examples of that. I guess one that's top of my mind is in the Lower Mainland, in the Tri-Cities area, Coquitlam is charging residents outside of their boundaries higher fees, and they're also limiting registration access for certain types of programs like aquatics, like swimming lessons and things like that. So yeah, there are a number of examples of differential fees across the province based on contributing versus not contributing, which is always controversial and messy, but it does exist. Yeah.
Hey, Director Vanish. For the
Thank
final
you.
word.
Yeah, one of the things that I would have liked to have seen in the report is other options. You know, it looks like today we're considering increasing taxes for all the seniors that are sitting in the room there in the gallery by $600 a year, which is devastating and a huge increase coming very suddenly here. And I understand there are other models to do this where the proportion that is paid by outside areas is more connected to their usage. And I'm just curious why that wasn't included, and then if you could speak to what the other models are.
Well, if I can, Mr. Chair, the financial models would be in options for bylaws. So the consultant isn't tasked with how those models would be divided up financially. So depending on what the board supports or not here today, options of contributions would be in bylaw format. So there would be a number of models offered to the board in terms of financial options.
On
Beyond
receipt.
the $600?
There's many options that'll be included. There'll be bylaw options for the board to choose from.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for you, because I have some comments that are more just directed to the directors and not necessarily to the consultant. So is it appropriate to make those now, or are we gonna, or is there time to discuss the report with the
No,
directors?
we're on receipt.
So if I have comments, they would be made now?
No. Wait until we get to the next portion.
Well, there is no next portion on the agenda, so
I think what
I
the
have an-
chair is saying, if you have comments to the presentation, we're on receipt for the presentation. If you have an editorial for directors, that is out of order to what's on the floor.
Okay, well, I have a follow-up motion following receipt.
Okay, thank you. So on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair.
I said I had a follow-up motion.
Oh, I apologize.
Director
thank you.
Chapman also said he had a follow-up motion.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was first. Director Chapman?
Thank you, Chair. This might give us something more to discuss. I move that amendment bylaw be prepared for the board's consideration that would add Quadra Island within Electoral Area C as an additional participant in the Strathcona Gardens Recreation Facility Service.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, discussion, sorry. Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. I definitely have some discussion on this and maybe an amendment to that motion. Directors likely know that there's a lot of community concern about this item, and that's why the entire gallery and hall are filled with residents from Area C. And you may recall that over the last couple of years, the board has received 2 petitions on this topic. One of those petitions had 1,226 signatures, which is 44% of the population of Area C. The petition shared opposition to inclusion of Area C in the garden service and respectfully requested an exclusive referendum. The board has also received close to 300 letters regarding Area C being potentially forced into the Strathcona Gardens service. One of those letter writers was Christine. Christine is a senior citizen living on a fixed income, and she is really feeling the pressures of rapidly escalating costs of living, as many seniors are. Since Christine's letter to the board, she has written me 11 times over 2 years asking for updates and expressing her extreme concern. Christine's letters have objected to being taxed for a facility she had no vote on. She has asked me to seek legal counsel to fight for our community. She has asked for a referendum so Quadra Island can leave the regional district. And she has asked for a town hall so we could brainstorm how to overcome this threat. As well, Christine CC'd me the letter she sent to Premier Eby asking him to intervene, explaining that Quadra Island does not have municipal services, that Campbell River and Area D voted for grand upgrades to their facilities, and that it is predatory for the SRD to now reach into the pockets of retirees on low fixed incomes for this non-essential facility. The outcome of today's discussion could have a serious impact on Christine, her ability to make her payments and buy her groceries, and many other people just like her, seniors and families with tight budgets and a crazy housing market, all just trying to get by. I'm sharing about Christine to build understanding. 47% of Area C's population is over 60. For many, this could have significant ramifications. Recreation is expensive and requires subsidizing. Residents of Area C know this. We pay a substantial annual requisition to support the Quadra Island Community Centre. We know the benefits of having a multifunctional community space which offers physical recreation, social activities, meeting rooms, a food bank, and high-caliber cultural events. What is on the table here is that islands with a costly ferry between them and Strathcona Gardens could be paying more than residents of Campbell River to support swimming and skating recreation in Campbell River. The report states that indirect benefits of recreation services include community pride, economic generation, and increased property values. Most of these sound like the benefits to the community the recreation facility is located in. Yes, attracting and retaining specialty service residents is a benefit which expands beyond Campbell River, but surely this benefit is realized by all of the regional district, as are the physical rehab benefits. When it comes to the economic impacts, the report outlines that there will be an annual GDP impact of approximately $1.3 million, 23 net new jobs created, and $1.4 million in tourism generated by the new facility. I believe these economic benefits accrue to Campbell River and adjacent Area D, not so much to Quadra Island, a ferry ride away. We've discussed other funding models, the Cowichan Valley Regional District, where they all contribute based on use, and the Ravensong Aquatic Centre, which is funded based on actual utilization. But that is as far as the report goes, and it doesn't delve into how this could look here. And there's another funding model for recreation services close by in the Comox Valley Regional District, which wasn't even mentioned in the report. Hornby and Denman Islands have a regional recreation contribution service agreement where they pay 10% of the rate of main island residents. Why wasn't it mentioned? The only model that this report offers is Quadra Island residents paying the same rate as all other service participants. Skipping over details of other options, I believe, was a missed opportunity and something I would like to learn more about. I think we have an opportunity here, and the opportunity is to ask for more information about what a contribution service agreement looks like, to weigh indirect benefits and modest island-based use, and come up with a solution which doesn't tax islanders more per average household than residents who have close, ferry-free, functional access, and economic benefits. The other opportunity that we have here is considering what a community leader is. And for me, leadership requires meaningful community consultation and considering all the factors. We are in a cost of living crisis by many accounts, and it is worsening by the day. Compare the sticker shock of $600 per household on Quadra Island to potential $27 in savings to Area D residents or $50 saved by Campbell River residents. Area C is working on providing basic services like solid waste and wood chipping to build climate resilience. How far will we get with those initiatives when we are faced with an average of $600 tax increase for off-island amenities? So, I'm asking my fellow directors to defeat this motion today so we can go back to the drawing board to look at more equitable options for support of Strathcona Gardens, such as a contribution service agreement.
Okay, thank you. We have, excuse me. Thank you. Okay, we have option A has been on the table. Do we have a second?
I second it.
You second it? Further discussion?
Did we have an amendment?
We don't have an amendment at this point. All in favor? Option
Hang on.
A.
I do have.
Sorry?
I have a comment.
Oh, sorry, Director Davis?
Yeah, it's working. Okay. I've had issues with this expansion ever since it was announced, not because of what's happening, but how big it is. The fact that it's $123 million. I know if I was in Campbell River, I couldn't support that. I'm the mayor of Tassus, and I have no stake in this game apart from at this meeting. But it's far too much to be putting on any taxpayer, is my opinion. And I concur with Director Mawhinney on her statements.
Thank you. Okay, audience, quiet, please. Last comment, Director Mawhinney?
Oh, it sees that Director Vanesh has his hand up, but I would like to move an amendment motion, Chair. And I would like to add on to the motion that has been made that the report also examine options for support based on contribution service agreements with consideration for additional access costs incurred by island residents.
Okay, does the first and the seconder agree? Second the motion?
No.
I'll second the motion if no one has.
Okay, on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed?
What's wrong with you people?
Excuse me, sir.
Chair, can we ensure that we're including the votes that are online as well?
Yes. Those online that are in favor
That's in favor of the amendment, right?
of the
In
amendment?
favor of the- Yeah, in favor of the amendment. And Matthew Jack is too.
Okay, thank you. 7-6 for against and for, so the motion is defeated. Okay, thank you. Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, there's 13 members at the board and 7 voted against and 6 in favor.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
I have another comment.
Sorry?
The original motion is still.
The original motion is still on the floor. Option A. All in favor of option A?
Oh, I wasn't.
Oh,
I had
sorry.
my hand up to discuss it.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Director Von Esch, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm assuming we're going to go into this vote on this motion and it's going to pass, probably 7-6 as well. I want to note that there's 2 directors not here. I think when this comes back, I think there's going to be additional opposition to this. And I also want to note that I think the province is going to have an issue with this. We have 0 actualization or usage rates from Campbell River. We have the biggest opposition I've seen in government since I've been here, 1,200 people writing in against it. If any of us were looking at our own communities who are voting in favor of this and your community was facing a $600 tax bill like this, it's a bit alarming that we're willing to consider this, but thank you.
Mr. Chair, 13 of the 14 directors are here today.
Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? On option A, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, opposed? Do you need the names?
Yes, please.
Opposed, we have Director Von Esch. We have Director Mawhinney, Director Davis, Director Colburn, and Director Wally,
5 of them.
and Director
Director
Jack.
Jack.
6 opposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, how are you voting?
I'm voting in favor.
So 6 opposed, so 7 in favor.
6 opposed, 7 in favor. The motion is carried.
Declared war on your neighbor.
You're shame on you. One missing
Okay.
signature, you're saying, so it could be a 50-50 vote in the.
We're going to clear the gallery if you guys can't behave, please. Thank you.
You are using this opportunity to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from the people on Quadra Island.
Okay, thank you. Moving on.
You are going to create.
Point of order. I'm going to clear the gallery.
Do we have a recess, please?
We'll take a 10-minute recess. Thank you.
They want us to own nothing and be happy about it. That's what they want. Shame on you.
Okay.
Residents of Quadra Island.
Erie wants to say.
We don't
Yeah.
have to. We don't have to spend your.
Me? Yeah, please either remain quiet or leave the building, please. Thank you. Okay, Director Wally, number 2.
The receipt of the council recreation service study.
Your microphone, please.
Number 2, Kelsey Centre Recreation Service Study. I move the report of the CAO be received.
Second.
Second, Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Options?
I'll move option A, that the Village of Sayward be requested to confirm whether it is interested in sharing ownership, governance, and/or financial support.
But we have a presentation by
Oh, we gotta
the
have a
consultant before that.
presentation
Yeah,
first?
sorry.
Testing. There we go. Yeah. Hello again. Sorry. Oh. Okay. Yeah. So the other facility that we were asked to look at and provide kind of a discussion study on was the Kelsey Centre, and bit of a different presentation and obviously a bit of a different situation here. So the presentation is really looking at 3 things. We'll again provide a little bit of background and context on the study, look at the Kelsey Centre from its own kind of specific benefits context and a bit of financial analysis, and then we'll provide some summary recommendations and actions. So starting with the study context and background, so as we discussed during the first report, the Kelsey Centre was one of the 2 facilities that was looked at or identified in the 2024 study as warranting some further consideration for sub-regional funding due to a couple key characteristics, one being that it is an amenity hub within the Sayward Valley, as well as the proximity of non-contributing residents in Electoral Area A to the facility. Again, preliminary analysis looking at kind of the proportion of non-contributing residents. Excuse me. The study explored the benefits, rationale, and potential move forward options for the facility as it pertains to sub-regional funding. And I think just important context, and I'm sure most are aware of this, but obviously the Kelsey Centre has experienced some service disruptions and is in, I guess, characterized as in kind of a partial state of decommissioning right now, not available for regularly scheduled programming, which obviously throws a bit of a dynamic into the potential move forward options, which we'll get to a little bit later on. So I won't spend as much time kind of going through the broader benefits context of recreation, other than just a refresher that obviously the research and various data points point to the physical, social, and community benefits of recreation. Indirect benefits, as we talked about in the first presentation, are generally a core rationale for investing in or subsidizing recreation and related services. And we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the benefits specific to the Kelsey Centre, which historically have been quite significant. So a bit more kind of context on the financial situation of the Kelsey Centre and how it might pertain to some future options. So while the Kelsey Centre was at full operation, so not excluding pandemic years and excluding its current kind of state of partial or mostly decommissioning, typically in an average year, the Kelsey Centre was requiring a net subsidy in that $180,000 to $270,000 range. As is outlined in the report, when we look at other kind of smaller community facilities with the same kind of mix of amenities, pool, indoor pool, gym, and so on, we would definitely say that the Kelsey Centre operates much more efficiently than kind of other facilities. So I think that really is credit to the facility operator for being able to kind of hold the line on facility operations relative to comparators. Again, recognizing that there is no kind of apples versus apples comparator. In 2024, so the last kind of mostly full year of operation, the total number of pool visits was about 4,300. And that reflects 5.8 swim visits per capita if we use the village population, and then 3.2 swim visits per capita if we use the village plus the electoral area A population. Both figures reflect a pretty strong level of use. We do quite a bit of aquatics work across the province, and anything over about 3 or 4 swims per capita, we would say is a very strong level of utilization. I think the last bolded point there is pretty important and obviously not a shock to most, that the village is an outlier in being a community of that size with an indoor pool. Even communities we're seeing across the province in that 5,000 to 10,000 range are really struggling to provide indoor aquatics as a service offering. Obviously, there's kind of a context around who built the pool, the resource industry of the past, and so forth. But overall, a community of Sayward and the Valley in general size having an indoor pool is a kind of an abnormal level of recreation service provision. Some catchment area considerations. So similar to the gardens, kind of looking at what a sub-regional funding area, it needs to consider a reasonable level of access. The 2024 Regional Rec Study did some GIS analysis that identified that about 56% of electoral area A residents live within 45-minute drive. Again, preliminary, just based on available GIS data. And that we also identified as the third point reflects that the Heritage Hall service boundary area could reflect a potential geographic boundary should the funding model for that facility be expanded. Looking at some other financial modeling and considerations, so the village has done some preliminary work on this as well, and estimated the cost savings of decommissioning the pool but retaining the other dry floor spaces to result in a savings of about $70,000 a year. The village also estimated that the cost of decommissioning the entire facility would be about result in a savings of about $193,000, and that about $63,000 would be required to just sustain the facility in a decommissioned state. So, insurance, basic building systems, so forth. The village has also conducted some engagement, and that certainly reflects the value and importance of that facility to both Village and Sayward Valley residents in electoral area A. But it also highlighted, at least initially, that there's probably some limited willingness or capacity to incur increased taxes to support the future of that facility. Granted, it was kind of a smaller sample size, so to speak, for the survey, but it did sort of reflect that being the situation. So like the garden situation, staff has done some preliminary high-level analysis of what the kind of the financial impacts could be of sustaining that facility, both capital and operating. So there's kind of two scenarios here. The top table on the right there is a funding scenario at a full facility operation. So looking at an estimated annual operating cost of about $270,000, which is sort of the high level of what the operating costs have been over the last number of years while at full operations. And looking at about $2 million is kind of a placeholder number for required capital reinvestment into the facility. That's just a preliminary placeholder number that would require some further exploration, but we use that number for the analysis. And then the bottom table would reflect kind of a partial level of operation. So just using 50% of the operating costs as, for example, if the pool was decommissioned but the gym was open, or the pool was only open for a limited basis, that would require a bit more exploration in terms of whether that's even possible or what those cost structures would be. But we just wanted to flesh out a few different scenarios here, and you can see in the table what that would amount to if the funding area was expanded out to the village plus a portion of electoral area A, using that Heritage Hall catchment area as kind of a basis for the analysis. So that brings us to the summary. So some conclusionary points here. Recreation services provide significant value and benefits. And kind of regardless of the future direction for the Kelsey Centre, there is a need to ensure Sayward Valley residents have access to recreational opportunities in some way, shape, or form. Kelsey Centre has obviously, as we've talked about, being successful, highly valued, both locally in the village and across the valley, and it's been effectively operated. But of course, it's aging and it requires reinvestment, even just to reinitiate and sustain operations. Third point there, which is kind of touched on earlier, a limited catchment area for the facility. So even if we include the Valley residents, less than 1,000 residents and about 305 resident folios, and that's just generally going to always probably be a structural challenge for that facility, given just the high cost of operating a facility with a pool. So bringing us into the recommendations, the recommendations here are that the study be provided to the Village and Sayward Mayor and Council for review and their consideration of next steps. Obviously, recognizing that the facility is owned by the Village and that the Village needs to direct future action. Second point there, if an expanded funding area is considered, shouldn't include all of Electoral Area A, but should be focused in on a bit of a tighter area. And again, the Heritage Hall service area is a potential or a sound point of reference for that service area. Third point, before proceeding with establishing a sub-regional funding area for the facility, just prudent to explore the viability future of the facility first, recognizing that there is reinvestment costs that need to be validated and a bit more information there. So that brings us kind of last slide here, just on some suggested actions to build on that last point there. So again, seeking direction from the Village and Council on the study. If the Village and kind of Council and Mayor support kind of the study findings, looking at reviewing potential participating jurisdictions and confirming interest in proceeding, including consideration of service area alignment and the financial implications outlined in the study. So essentially ensuring that there is kind of a willingness to move forward. And then there's a few other things that would be required beyond that. One would be to undertake updated technical assessment just to confirm facility condition and the reinvestment costs. Again, we've just used that $2 million as kind of a placeholder for the analysis, but that needs to be further looked at, and what would be required to reinvest in the facility to keep it sustainable long term. And then confirming the financial, kind of using that information to reconfirm the financial capacity, potential funding approach, and service delivery model, and then ultimately proceed with board consideration and decision making. So number of kind of steps, some of them sequential, some of them kind of interlocking that would need to be undertaken just based on the current condition of the facility, even beyond just the funding model itself. And happy to take any questions.
Director Wally?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments from my own constituents that are listening in on this. That first of all, I was impressed with your one recommendation there that we have a non-binding opinion referendum could be undertaken, determine whether residents of electoral area are interested in this. So that's significant. I think that's a good idea. It would save us all, I think, in the long term, quite a bit of money. The difference between this, and probably the main difference between this and Strathcona Gardens, is that in this case, the electors have to prove it. And I think the board would understand that there's no way on earth the electors in electoral area are going to approve that. $729, not a chance. So, I mean, we can hold a referendum if you want. We had one before, years before. It failed, this will fail. So this is up to the Village whether they want to go ahead with this or not. The other thing I just want to point out, I don't know if everybody's aware and watched the news recently, but the majority of the electors in the Village have asked the provincial government to dissolve the Village and join Electoral A. If they're successful, then of course this whole thing is moot. We would probably own the facility and do what we want with it in that case. So I thought I would just point that out to you. But as far as the motion that Director Sinnet is promoting, I don't have a problem with that because it's not going anywhere anyway. So,
CEO?
Just if I can make a correction, and one of the things Director Wally said was he said the difference between this, it would have to seek electoral approval. In the quadra scenario that we talked about, that as well, you would have to seek electoral approval in that process. It's no different.
Yeah, well, what I was pointing out was in, I believe, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Leach, but I think in the Strathcona Gardens, Campbell River would be part of that election, where in my case it would be Electoral Area A only.
Well, no, I'd anticipate in whether it's the Village, the Valley, Quadra, Area D, Campbell River, all affected electors have a vote.
Any other questions or comments? Director Mulvaney?
Thank you, Chair. I was curious about the fact that you said, I think you said the word anomaly, that this was an anomaly for a community of this size to have such a facility, and that it was going to require an estimated at least $2 million reinvestment. And just kind of wondering what the usual population is required to sustain a facility like this.
Through the chair to the director, there really isn't a specific benchmark that I could give you, but I would say that like that number, that population threshold is increasing as the escalating cost of providing aquatics is increasing. So the cost of building aquatics facilities is astronomically higher than it was even a few years ago, and operations have also increased in lockstep. So I can say that, we've worked in a number of communities in that kind of 5,000 to 10,000 range that have really struggled, even higher than that, and population that have really struggled to support indoor aquatics as a service offering, but there isn't kind of a sort of a benchmark across the province.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Director Davis. The Village of Tassus still operates your indoor pool, do you?
Yes, we do. Our costs are south of $300,000 a year to keep it open. This year, this is a one-off. We've tried applying for grants. There are no grants for rec centers, and this year is a one-off. We put an additional $175,000 in our budget to do work on it, but the only way we're managing to do that is applying for every grant we can for everything else that we do in town, and then we're taking the money that we've saved through that by doing this, so, yeah.
Okay, Director Lanyon, then Director Kerr.
Sure, I'm just curious on the knock-on effects, like if this goes to the electorate says no, and the Kelsey Centre is shut down, the justification for at least Southern Area A residents joining the recreation service that we were talking about earlier, there's a basis for them not joining that as long as they have the Kelsey Centre. But when that's removed, it seems reasonable that that population would then have increased usage of the Strathcona Gardens. And so there would be a basis to perhaps pull some or all of Area A into the recreational service as well. I just think that's a balancing argument that should be taken back.
Okay, Director Dahl.
Well, I'm only going to add a point. Has nothing to do with the vote or what the motion will be. But as somebody who grew up in a very small town in Alberta that didn't have a swimming pool, I would encourage the people of Sayward to do everything they can to keep a pool available for kids growing up in that community. As someone who is now 60 and still doesn't swim, because I grew up in a community where that was not an option, I think that having a pool, even though there was plenty of people here today that see no value in having a pool, I see having a facility where kids can learn how to swim as having great value. So I would encourage the Village of Sayward to do everything they can to keep the pool open.
Thank you. Director Davis.
Another point I would make with our rec center is we've also used it for emergency situations, like when we lost power for over a week. We were putting people up. They were literally sleeping in the gymnasium there, and we have a kitchen facility that we're using. And I'm not familiar with the Sayward Rec Center, so I can't speak to that, but it has great value in other ways, so that needs to be considered potentially.
Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for staff. What if the Village of Sayward went out to municipal financing? What would be the terms on something like that?
Well, I mean, we can do a variety of terms, but often we'll do between 25 and 35 years on borrowing to, make it, there's a happy spot, I suppose, but if you want to make it a little cheaper, you stretch out the borrowing a little bit longer, and if you want to get the borrowing done with a little bit quicker, you do a little shorter term.
And a point to expand on Director Davis, we do have a gymnasium and a full kitchen as well at the rec center that does substitute as a emergency meeting place in our community. So it definitely does have a lot of value in that sense as well. Thank you. Director Wally?
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out the Valley also has its kitchen and its community center, which is heavily participated by the Valley and the village. I think there's more village residents use our Valley Center than Valley residents do, but we've all got our own facilities. We all support our own.
Okay, so we're on option A, is that correct? Oh, I thought we had a motion. On receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Senate?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll make a motion that the Village of Sayward be requested to confirm whether it is interested in sharing ownership, governance, and/or financial support with the SRD for the Kelsey Centre. That's option A.
Director Davis, second. Discussion, Director Colburn?
I have a question. So in the presentation, and I know I probably should have asked this earlier. So if this resolution is passed, then what are the next steps through to staff? What comes back to us, and what's kind of a timeline on that? Or will we have to wait until a further study is done by the village?
No, if I may, Mr. Chair, so if this motion passes, we'll send the study and the report down to the village and say, here's some findings, some details, potential partnerships, estimated cost. We don't own or operate the facility, so we'll say to them, are you interested in having a partner? If they are, then we'll start narrowing down what that partner, bring options back, what that partnership could look like, the timing of it, so on and so forth. So many details to follow. I think in the report it calls for an assessment too, so that likely an assessment have to be done. A number of things that would have to happen that would keep coming back to the board, but the first one is ask the owner of it if they want a partner.
Okay, and that was going to be my follow-up, was that the suggested actions said that undertake, some technical assessments and things like that. And I know that the village has done some work on that, but those need to be updated first. So in that case, then what would happen is, would the village then share those again with the Valley? It would be a reciprocal relationship.
Again, we have to see. I mean, I don't know what their interest is. I mean, we all know the village is faced with some significant tax increase, so this is going to go to the village and say, what direction would you like us to move? And based on that, then we'll start to unfold that and do what has interest of it. Yes, an assessment would take money. We'd have to figure out where those funds are coming from, who's going to do it. There's a number of things to unfold, but it has to start with asking the village what their interest level is.
Director Wally?
Just a question for staff for confirmation. Are we intending to proceed with the non-binding opinion referendum to see if the people are interested?
I can give a firm I don't know, because let's say we send it down to the village and they say we're not interested in a partner, we're out. We don't do anything more. In, again, a definite maybe, right? There's a lot of things to unfold.
Director Mowini.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just sort of following up on the thread that Director Colburn was following there. I was curious about the geotechnical safety of such a building. So is that one of the assessments that would be undertaken, is, earthquake? I think our understanding of how we build an earthquake safe building has probably evolved in the last 50 years. So is that one of the assessments? And if so, would it be a shared cost between the regional district and the village, or how would those sort of assessments be undertaken?
If I can, Mr. Chair, I think we're way ahead of ourselves. We need to start with seeing what the village's response is, if they're even interested in this, and then what those next steps would be, how much they would cost, so on and so forth.
Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, number 3.
Thank you, Chair. Item 3, development variance permit application and development permit foreshore for Electoral Area D. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Second, Director Mawhinney. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item B, that the development variance permit DV 5D25, as presented in the staff report dated March 16th, 2026, be approved, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the permit.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item C, that the development permit DP 6025, as presented in the staff report dated March 16th, 2026, be approved, and that the corporate officer be authorized to issue the permit.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Item 4, request for frontage relief, Electoral Area D. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item B, that the frontage relief be approved for the proposed subdivision of Lot 1, Section 32, Township 4, Comox District, Plan EPP 13378, reducing the required footprint from 10% to 7.3% for Lot B as shown on the plan of subdivision attached to the March 16th, 2026 report from the Chief Administration Officer.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney, number 5.
Thank you, Chair. Statutory rights of way, Electoral Area C, move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
I think, Mr. Chair, Meredith will speak to this.
Thank you, through the chair. So this application, excuse me, this report is to authorize the execution of statutory right-of-way documents required as part of the application to deposit an approved subdivision plan with the Land Title and Survey Authority. There was a subdivision application approved by the Ministry of Transportation and Transit for some lands on Quadra Island. The SRWs that are here as attached to this report are conditions of the SRD's support for that subdivision. The first is to authorize statutory right-of-ways over sewer infrastructure that the SRD would have ownership over. And the second charge is for an SRW for the purposes of pedestrian access over their Strata Road. Thank you.
Any questions? Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. So I do have a question, and I'm really happy to see that public access to the unopened Strathcona Regional District Park is being formalized through this agreement. I'm just curious if there's a potential or possibility of utilizing the statutory right-of-way C in the report to provide expanded access to properties on Greed Road to the sewer service. And if so, would it be maybe advantageous to expand the charge form before we support it?
Not at this time. There's currently no sewer infrastructure in that area, so that's why we haven't sought access to any lines. They just don't exist there. And it's not currently being proposed as a potential route for that sewerage service. So if that were to come up, it could be negotiated at a future date, but it's not relevant to the existing subdivision.
If I may have a follow-up, Chair, we've heard from engineering staff that there are people at the far end of Green Road who are interested in connecting to the sewer service. This statutory right-of-way is going towards Green Road or touches on Green Road partway along. And they've also been given a very high quote for getting that sewer service to connect to the rest of the properties down further along south on Green Road. So I'm just wondering, I know we've had troubles in the past where we have a statutory right-of-way for one thing, and then when we want to change it later, we run into challenges. We've had a sewer statutory right-of-way, which then we couldn't get a human access put on top of. So just kind of trying to see if there's a possibility of
I don't know, making sure that we cover all our bases before we move forward.
I can see Sheena's here. She may have a answer for that from the engineering perspective. As far as a planning perspective goes, we don't typically seek to encumber land arbitrarily. So if there was a known need, certainly we would pursue that. But in this case, there is not an identified need for that at this time. Unless Sheena would like to add.
Thank you through the chair to the director. The nature of the sewer service in that area is sort of atypical to what you would see perhaps in Campbell River. It's where properties on that system have what is called a step system, where they actually have to collect their own solids. The collection infrastructure running through this portion of the subdivision is very, very small diameter and would not be appropriate for extension or additional collection of any additional sewer. So it's not a main line that is we're seeking the rights of way over. It's sort of the smaller collection system. So it would not function for extension down Green Road.
Okay, I appreciate that context. Thank you.
Okay, anybody?
Be authorized to execute the Form C charge to establish a statutory right-of-way over lands identified as SRW Area C on Plan EPP 140146 for the purpose of non-motorized public access.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Morwini.
My lucky day. Thank you, Chair. Item number 6, Advisory Planning Commission's membership vacancies. I will move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I will move B, that the resignation of Anna Hooper be accepted with respect to the Electoral Area D Advisory Planning Commission, and she be thanked for her service.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. Director Morwini.
Oh, sorry, I was just voting yes already.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
And I will move C, that the membership of Sheldon Etheridge be terminated with respect to the Electoral Area C Advisory Planning Commission, and he be thanked for his service.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And I will move D, that recruitment processes be initiated to fill vacant positions on the Electoral Area C and Electoral Area D Advisory Planning Commissions.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Von Esch, number 7, please.
Crown land application referral, electoral area B. I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Von Esch?
Yeah, just wondering, it sounds like we can just receive this or we can make a comment on that. And I'm just looking for direction on how to make that comment. Do I make a motion that, we support this application or what's the process?
If I can, Mr. Chair, this is just for information. If the board is going to make comment, it needs to come through this process. So it's up for the board's discretion, but a comment has to come from the board.
So you can make a motion if you like.
Okay, I would move that the board support this application.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'll move number 8, Mr. Chair, overhead cost allocation policy, the report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
And I'd further move option A, that a report be prepared to determine whether the overhead costs currently attributed to Electoral Area Administration Service should be charged to Electoral Area Planning and brought back to the ESC for further discussion.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Von Esch, number 9.
Electoral Area B, Active Transportation Network Plan. I'll move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Morwini, discussion. All in,
if I may.
sorry, go ahead.
Just wanted to thank staff and all the constituents on Cortez who played a role in putting input into this report, and really appreciate the findings, recommendations, and really just acting as a base for us to be able to move forward on some potential projects in the future. Thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'll move that the Electoral Area B Active Transportation Plan be approved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, number 10.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to, Electoral Area D Active Transportation Network Plan. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? Director Rice?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for the public record. We do have a deadline date for the funding on this plan, is that correct?
Thank you, through the Chair, if I may. We are required to report back with an acceptance of the plan by March 31st.
By March 31st? And I do have a problem with part of the plan, so I'm just wondering, do I have an amendment? Do I bring an amendment forward?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think because of the time here, I would accept the plan and then make a subsequent that it be referred back to EASC, and then you can bring forward concerns you have.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
So I'll move item B, that the Electoral Area D Active Transportation Network Plan be approved, and then I have a subsequent after that.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Thank you, Chair. The subsequent is that I would like to have the Active Transportation Plan come back to EASC, as we need some more work on one of the Hagel Greenway pathway. Thank you.
Director Wally, second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Mawhinney, number 11.
Thank you, Chair. Electoral Areas B and C Active Transportation Plans, Capital Opportunities. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer is received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I will move that staff prepare a report identifying minor capital opportunities within the Area B and Area C active transportation plans that could be advanced using available funding within the Area B and Area C financial plans.
Second.
Director Wally, you go there. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Von Esch, number 12.
Policy CP041, Legacy Gifts in Regional District Parks. I'll move the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'll move the policy CP041, Legacy Gifts in Regional District Parks be approved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Mawhinney, number 13.
Thank you, Chair. Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act Principal Residence Requirement. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Wally.
Oh, sorry, Chair.
wait, B.
There's a B. Thank you. That the status of all electoral areas within the Strathcona Regional District remain unchanged with respect to opting in or opting out of the Short-Term Rental Accommodations Act Principal Residence Requirement.
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Number 14, proposed electoral area grant service. I move that the report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Discussion? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Good enough. Option A, I move that a bylaw be prepared for the board's consideration that would establish a service for awarding financial assistance within the regional district's electoral areas.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Number 15, Hayward Valley Solid Waste Collection, move that the reports and CO be received.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Further move that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to execute the contract between Waste Management of Canada Corporation and the regional district for the collection of solid waste in the Hayward Valley.
Second.
Dr. Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Finally, I move that the amendment to the rates bylaw for Hayward Valley Solid Waste Collection be prepared for the board's consideration.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? Those opposed? None, motion's carried. Director Von Esch, number 16.
Cortez Island Solid Waste and Recycling Collection, I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. B.
I'll move that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to execute the contract between VEM Contracting and the regional district for the collection of solid waste and recyclable materials on Cortez Island.
Second.
Discussion?
If I may, Chair.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank VEM Contracting for agreeing to sign a new contract, and just noting that we received this pickup for an extremely affordable price on Cortez. It's about $110 a property per year, which is remarkable in comparison to other places. And just thank staff for helping move that forward as well. Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. Surge Narrows Post Office License Renewal. Move that the report from the CAO be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I will move B, that a bylaw to authorize entering into a licensing agreement with Canada Post Corporation for the use of a portion of the Surge Narrows Wharf facility be prepared for the board's consideration.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, number 18.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice.
Number 19th, Youth Housing Partnership with the John Howard Society. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Mr. Chair, Madison will speak to this.
Hello. Through the chair, this report is simply bringing forward a recommendation from the Community Health and Wellness Committee that was made on March 3rd. Specifically, it would explore collaboration with the John Howard Society in Campbell River, although they do oversee the entire North Island, to advance youth housing partnerships in the region. At the March 3rd meeting, there was a presentation on the 2026 Youth Housing Needs Report, which is basically more information related to the housing needs report you all see each 5 years, but targeting youth. And the committee passed a resolution following that would recommend the SRD support collaboration on youth housing at the staff level to establish feasibility. Why this matters, we've seen from the point in time count that 47% of folks experiencing homelessness became homeless as a youth for the first time, and that rises to 51% for Indigenous respondents. It tells us clearly that intervention is required at an early stage. Why John Howard Society? They already operate youth housing in our community, 6 units at Barnett House. They also operate the Foundry Youth Centre and provide outreach for at-risk youth downtown. At this time, the board's not being asked to fund or deliver housing directly in this stage, just more of an information sharing opportunity from the Health and Wellness Committee to you all that moving forward, I will play a convening and enabling role working with the John Howard Society to figure out what their goals are. And at a later date, if these align with the SRD board's strategic goals, which could include partnerships planning and obviously development, that would come forward at a later date.
Any questions? Director Mwini?
Thank you, Chair. So after we have a receipt, we have another motion here that we consider collaborating with the John Howard Society to advance partnerships for youth housing. And I'm just kind of curious what that exactly means. Like, we've just heard maybe you're going to be having meetings with them to help them figure out what they need. But then beyond that, like, I guess I'm just curious, like, I feel like potentially the role of the Community Health and Wellness Liaison, I'm not sure exactly what your title is, sorry, Madison, is funded through Island Health. So do we direct her to do things, or she just does things and then tells us about them? I just don't quite understand how that all fits together.
No, Mr. Chair, we're not directing Madison. She takes direction from the Health and Wellness Committee. What she's asking us here for just is collaboration, and if there's a collaboration opportunity, it'll come to this board, and either the board will support it or they won't.
Okay. So before that, there's not really much.
Okay, so on receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
So I'll move item B. I'd like to move item B, that the regional district collaborate with the John Howard Society of North Island to advance partnerships for youth housing.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Lanyon, number 20.
I move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received in respect of the Growing Communities Community Canopies Grant.
Second.
Second, Director Chapman. Discussion.
Mr. Koopman will speak to this, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair, under the forthcoming regulations that we're expecting through the Emergency and Disaster Management Act, there will be a greater onus on local governments to undertake risk assessments. I'm suggesting that the regional district get ahead of this game and conduct a risk assessment in the participating electoral area, First Nation, and municipalities that have been identified in this staff report to examine whether the current tree canopy coverage in these areas is sufficient to protect vulnerable populations from extreme heat event, wind, and also examine the survivability of the trees for upcoming climate change. So do we have enough protection currently and for the long term? But in order to apply as the lead applicant, I require the blessing of the board through a resolution.
Okay, and that was still on receipt. Director Wally?
Yeah, just an easy question for Mr. Koopman. What on earth is equity tree planting?
Great question. Can I use your example, Martin? Yeah, so through the chair, if I can tag on a conversation that I had at the Tassus Council meeting, the village of Tassus has identified a socially vulnerable area in their community as a mobile home park built on old hog fuel that they believe currently has insufficient tree coverage. So we would be looking at those vulnerable areas as suggested by the communities.
Director Chapman?
If we want to increase our tree canopies, doesn't that make it more at risk for forest fires?
Great question through the chair. Those recommendations would come from the report. We wouldn't want to make our communities more vulnerable to other hazards to protect against heat-driven hazards. So deciduous trees would be preferred.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I'll move B. Oh, sorry,
I
Ben.
got it,
Was you?
thanks. Yeah. I move that an application be submitted to the 2026 Growing Canada's Community Canopies Grant application in partnership with the municipalities and First Nations identified in the March 20th, 2026 staff report in order to provide funding for a regional equity-focused tree planting prioritization study, and that the SRD commit to overall management of the grant if the application is successful.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Murwini, number 21.
Thank you, Chair. Corporate investment policy, move that the report from the CAO be received.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Director Dahl, number 22.
That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Wally, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
That invoice number 924 in the amount of $401,459.32 from Broad Street Properties Limited for ongoing land development, servicing, and construction for the Just Like Home project be approved for payment.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Colburn, number 23.
That the report from the CAO be received regarding the weather radio service disconnection.
Director Wally.
Mr. Koopman will speak to this as well, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, the purpose of this report is to request the board's blessing to pass a resolution to ask the federal government what is their current new plan for providing weather and tsunami warnings to people who recreate in areas outside of cell phone and internet reception. This was a service currently provided by Weather Radio, and while the staff report doesn't go too much into the history of it, I just feel that I need to note, I only found out about this because a personal friend texted me that the feds were shutting it down. I shared it with my colleagues at the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. Public Safety had not told them about it. I have been trying for the last month and a half to get the feds in the province to have a information session webinar with local governments and First Nations so that we can ask our questions. And that has still not happened. So I was hoping to have a lot more information about questions to bring together on the implications in future of this in preparations for this report, but despite all my best intentions, that didn't go forward. But to my knowledge right now, there is no plan to provide coverage to these areas that do not have cell phone, internet reception. The feds speak that, satellite technologies have improved. That's true, but you can't monitor frequencies through satellite radio. There is marine radio for boaters. True, you cannot legally carry a marine radio on land though. So, I'm thinking more like the campers, the hikers along our waterfronts. Like when people go down to Raft Cove, Top Knot Point, our recommendation, we have signs gearing people towards weather radio that if you're going down here, this is the only way that you're going to get a tsunami warning. And that's now not even an option. So very concerning that I understand there are new technologies emerging, but we're very concerned that this, in my opinion, the critical lifeline service has been disconnected without an all available holistic solution in place. So.
Okay. Director Colburn.
Is this this is a service that is a default service for anybody who's kind of out in the backcountry, essentially?
Through the chair, that is correct. Anybody previous to March 16th, any could buy a $30 hand crank satellite radio and pick up the weather radio frequencies anywhere.
So this is super interesting to me because of the ramifications of the tsunami warning that went out when TELUS was down in Uklajee in New Chatlet for the New Chatlet Nation. They had no phone, they had no internet, nobody knew. they weren't warned. And so it's very dear to my heart. So thank you for taking this opportunity to let us know, let municipalities know, hopefully through your network, that all of the emergency services and all the regional districts are working on this and applying that pressure. Thanks.
Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question to Mr. Koopman. I've noticed over the last couple of years that even on VHS, it's becoming more difficult to get the weather channels. So I'm wondering, is this something that we want to expand? Because again, for boaters, depending where we are, we rely on that, and we're not able to get that information. Prime example is in Nootka Sound. Okay, the weather channels are very hard to key in. The only one that works reliable is the French one. And unfortunately, it doesn't give you an interpretation when you're getting it. And then when you're up around Zabelis area, again, it's the French one that seems to be the one that is the most predominant. And it is becoming a problem when we're out on the West Coast. So.
Any other good? Dr. Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just really wanted to thank Mr. Koopman for bringing this forward. I think it's really important. And I'm wondering if it would be helpful or supported if we CC'd our letter to the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Nature? Okay, I didn't know that they had changed their name. But anyway, that ministry. If we CC'd our letter to other regional districts, such as like Mount Waddington or other regional districts that are in the northern areas of the AVICC catchment area that might be really specifically affected. I'm curious if that seems like it would be beneficial to anyone?
That's a typo. Nature is French for emergency.
Further discussion? Director Colburn?
So I'm just wondering, we're on receipt.
Yes.
We could build that into the amendment, or okay, thanks.
Okay, so on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
So that the regional district write a letter to the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Emergency requesting information about the plans to ensure that weather and tsunami warnings continue to be accessible to areas where cellular is limited or unavailable, and that we CC the rest of the RDs in the AVICC catchment area at a minimum.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion? Director Colburn?
Well, and I'm wondering, there's large swaths of the entirety of BC that aren't covered. So, I mean, that's why I put at a minimum. I'm wondering if we just want to CC all the regional districts in BC. So that's an amendment to my motion. Is that, who's seconded? That's, okay, yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Request for financial assistance, Electoral Area C. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And I will move B, that the board approve grants and aid to be paid from the Electoral Area C grant and aid budget as follows. $2,500 to the Quadra Cat Rescue to assist with controlling the unwanted cat population on Quadra Island, and $600 to the Quadra Island Chamber Music Society to assist the 2026 Quadra Island Chamber Music Festival.
Director Wally, discussion? Director Senate?
I'm just wondering how you control cat populations without catching them and spaying them or neutering them. What are you doing?
That's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
In fact, they act, just to further to that question, this society traps, neuters, and releases if they're wild. And they also catch kittens and rehabilitate them and rehome them. And the ones that are truly wild and have been neutered, they maintain their health by, I guess, feeding them every once in a while or something. So it's a it's a holistic program.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Bylaws. Number 1, Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Bylaw number 625, Oyster Riverbank Protection Service. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Sorry, just one question that I wanted to ask. Was there something with the alternate approval maps when it went out?
No, we looked into that after the question be raised, and the maps reflect the 200 floodplain map as identified in the report. It mirrors that map that was provided a few years in an earlier report.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'd like to move item B, that bylaw number 625 being the Oyster Riverbank Protection Local Service Establishment Bylaw 1989, Amendment Number 1, be reconsidered, finally passed, and adopted.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Wally.
Move number 2, bylaw number 636, Duncan Bay Fire Protection Service, that the report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I move that bylaw number 636, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement for the provision of fire protection services for part of Electoral Area A, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 636 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Moini? Was that you? Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Finally, I move that bylaw number 636, being Duncan Bay Area Fire Protection Service Agreement Authorization Bylaw 2026, be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Discussion. Director Moini? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Number 3, bylaw number 637, Sayward Fire Hall lease. Move that the report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Move that bylaw number 637, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a lease agreement for fire protection services in the village of Sayward, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Further move that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 637 be given second and third reading.
Second.
Director Moini, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And finally, I move the bylaw number 637, being Sayward Fire Hall lease agreement authorization bylaw 2026, be reconsidered, finally passed, and adopted.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice.
Bylaw number 639, Electoral Area D rezoning. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item B, that bylaw number 639, being a bylaw to amend the zoning regulations applicable to Electoral Area D, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'd like to move item C, that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 639 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item D, that bylaw number 639 being Campbell River Area Zoning Bylaw 1991, Amendment Number 83, be reconsidered, finally passed, and adopted.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Lanyon. Number 5.
Regarding bylaw 640 revenue anticipation borrowing, I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
B, I move that bylaw number 640, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of funds in anticipation of recurring or receiving revenue, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
And I move
Seeing none, motion's carried.
C, that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 640 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And lastly, D, that bylaw number 640, being revenue anticipation borrowing, authorization bylaw 2026 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Chapman.
I move that for bylaw 641, regional housing temporary borrowing, that the report from the chief administrative officer be received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move that bylaw 641, being a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing for public housing purposes, now be introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I move that the rules be suspended and bylaw 641 being given second and third reading.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move that bylaw 641, being a regional housing temporary borrowing authorization, bylaw 2026, be reconsidered and finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Correspondence.
Mr. Chair, I would like to pull number 2, 8, and 9.
Yes, I'd like to pull number 1 and
Just a sec, 2, 8, and 9.
5.
And I'd like to see 7.
Let's just do them separate.
Okay, so just go through it one by one. Okay, correspondence, number 1.
I'll make a motion that the February 23rd, 2026 correspondence from BC Hydro inviting collaboration with local governments be received.
Second.
Discussion.
And I'll have a follow-up with respect to current concerns with the BC Hydro power needs assessment on Vancouver Island being far short of what we expect to have available for needed development. So there'll be a request afterwards.
Okay. Any further discussion? On receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'm not sure if this is properly referable to any particular committee, first of all, but I'd have an invitation to meet with BC Hydro, and in particular to discuss with them their assessment under the current BCUC application for power needs, where they've assessed Vancouver Island as having zero growth for industrial for the preceding 20 years, which would constrain all economic development on the island potentially, along with the shortfalls they're currently facing right now with power generation and the pending closure of the Capital Power plant, which will reduce the power capacity on the island by 275 megawatts. So an invitation as soon as possible.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Director Rice, discussion? Director Mawhinney?
Quick question, I'm just wondering, that was a lot of knowledge that was just shared from Director Sinnott, and just wondering if this would be something that the City Council of Campbell River, they may have a lot more knowledge and information to share, or should we ask for a report about what was just shared before we ask for a meeting with BC Hydro? Just questioning the efficacy of asking for a meeting with BC Hydro if we don't have the background.
I'm all in favor of leaving it to the CAO to deal with the City of Kamloops River CAO if they wish, but I think as a regional approach, I think this is much more important. We know what's happening within the city's power needs, but I think this is a regional issue for sure. So I leave it to the CAO to sort of develop the framework and then come back with a timeline with BC Hydro. It's somewhat sensitive because they're going through the Utility Commission proceedings. It may be worthwhile for us to have a quick meeting and do a follow-up with a letter as a result of those findings to the Utilities Commission, because it's too late to do an intervention. But there's no reason you can't submit information to the Utilities Commission, setting out your concerns on their power needs assessment.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Number 2, Director Mawhinney.
Move receipt of the VIRL Executive Committee news release regarding the election of the Executive Committee for the library.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion? Director Mawhinney.
I wanted to congratulate Director Rice on being appointed to or elected to the executive, representing the Strathcona Regional District. It's great.
Thank you. Director Rice.
Just a couple of comments. There was actually the vice chair from TASIS was also elected. This is my second year on the executive. But one thing I was going to mention is that we have fairly big binders. If anybody's interested, this is basically a lot of their policies. And I'm happy to share this as long as I get it back. But it's a lot of information, and it basically outlines what their strategic vision is, all of those things, what their priorities. So not a big read, should only take you 10 minutes to read it, and then you can give it back. Thank you.
Okay. So there's no motion. We voted. Now we're on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Number 3, anybody?
That the February 23rd, 2026 correspondence from UBCM regarding membership in the UBCM be received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Number 4, anyone?
The February 27th. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
You do it.
That the February 27th, 2026 correspondence from the City of Prince George regarding public safety concerns be received.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Dahl.
I'd like to make a motion that the regional district send a letter of support for the correspondence from City of Prince George. The City of Campbell River has already done so, signed and sent.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you. Number 5?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the February 27th, 2026 correspondence from Campbell River Search and Rescue regarding financial assistance from the regional district be received.
Second.
Well, Director Rice, discussion?
Yeah, I guess the question is this a regional grant in aid or is this an area D? And it's kind of confusing because I think the request we knew from the city was not, we directed them to the SRD. We thought it was higher than this. So I'm confused where they're in the process, that there's a confusion going on.
I would prefer it went to the regional.
Yeah, I just thought it was going to be a larger amount because the city had provided, I think, 25,000 in support in the past. So this might be the past support.
It says they did 2,500 last year.
Well, the way I read it was there was a request for 5,000. But we had at the city a refusal to pay because they're a regional service. And I just don't know if there's been a miscommunication because of the emails. Like, did you apply for your regular amount versus, I just don't know whether I don't mind approving this, but I'm just saying, yeah, 2,500.
Last year.
last year for operating expenses. So so I'm just saying, do we know if there's been a miscommunication, or is this?
Do you want it to
the
be
end of it?
tabled? Tabled for now until we get it cleared?
Well, I think you can receive, and maybe the subsequent is just to follow up with clarity to make sure this is the only request they have of the regional district.
Okay,
Same difference to me. Table it or follow up.
same thing. We'll table it.
Fine. We can vote to receive and then, I think it's better to receive and then do a follow-up, yeah.
Okay,
I would need a motion to table.
yeah, we need a motion, finish the motion to receive. All in favor of receipt? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Yeah, just make a motion that we follow up with the search and rescue organization, make sure this is the final request that they have to the SRD in case there was some mistake.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 5.
That was number 5.
That was number 5, sorry. Number 6.
That the March 9th correspondence from the MIA regarding elections be received.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Number 7.
This is request for financial assistance for the Campbell River Seawolves football. This was a grant request that came in, so I have a verbal motion once we've received it.
Okay,
Second.
Dr. Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And the verbal motion is that to grant the full amount of $5,000 from Electoral Area D's grant and service.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney, number 8.
That the March 18th, 2026 correspondence from the Mars Wildlife Rescue Center regarding financial assistance from the regional district be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. My question really centered around this item of correspondence, which says, thank you for your support and thank you for your invitation. We would be delighted to meet with you. Please suggest some meeting dates that would be convenient for you. I just felt like perhaps we needed, does the chair need direction to share the next few board meeting dates? Do we have to have a motion for that, or can we just carry on?
A motion to invite.
A motion, I felt like we already invited them in our last motion, and that's why they say thank you for your invitation in the correspondence, but if we
Yeah,
need-
with the date.
Well, they ask for a range of dates.
Okay,
Maybe we could advise them of our next 3 board meeting dates?
we could. Yeah. Everybody agree on that? Okay.
Okay, great.
Motion to receive, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 9.
The Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce, MRDT tax, move that the correspondence from the Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce regarding support for access to the MRDT tourism tax be received.
Second.
Dr. Colburn, discussion. Dr. Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just so grateful for the dedication of the volunteers that it took to get to this place with this application. And as you can see from looking at the correspondence, this has been a goal of the Chamber of Commerce for quite some time, since probably earlier than 2011. And fresh leadership combined with community requests and direction during the economic diversification planning process of 2025, I believe sparked the renewed planning efforts. And I think it's really excellent to see the Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce recognize the need for balance with the funds raised going to support workforce housing initiatives and tourism priorities. think it's a really significant, the strong support the application received from local accommodation providers who unanimously signed on. I was happy to provide a letter of support for the application, and I trust that directors will support the motion that is requested in the correspondence, which I will propose following receipt.
Okay, on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
And I will move that the Strathcona Regional District support the implementation of a 2% municipal and regional district MRDT on eligible accommodation properties located on Quadra Island within Electoral Area C, and that the Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce be designated as the eligible entity responsible for receiving, administering, and reporting on MRDT revenues generated from accommodation properties located on Quadra Island, and that MRDT revenues generated from accommodation properties located on Quadra Island be used exclusively to support tourism marketing programs, projects, and eligible tourism workforce housing stabilization initiatives benefiting Quadra Island, and that the Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce administer the MRDT program in accordance with the municipal and regional district tax program requirements established by the province of British Columbia and Destination BC, and further that MRDT revenues collected from accommodation located on Quadra Island be remitted directly to the Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce for administration of the program.
Was that the motion?
That's the whole motion.
Wow, could you repeat it? No, let's, all in favor? Oh, we need a seconder, sorry.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Okay, did we get a seconder?
We'll get a seconder first, then go to discussion.
Director Davis, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Lanyon.
Thank you. Okay, so just in terms of, I think I heard, did you say there was unanimous or there was majority support from providers?
Well, it's sort of divided into two sections. I believe that it's providers of over a certain size that there has to be support from, and I understand that it was unanimous. But there are, of course, other smaller providers that are not part of the process. I think that's how it works. Yeah. You have the list right there.
Yeah, just not familiar with the forms, but it looked like there was a list of different properties, like example, April Point Resort, a couple numbered companies, Taku, Harriet Bay Inn, Gallon Harbor, and so on, and then the number of units that they represent. And then on the next page, there's another table where they sign that they are, looks like essentially agreeing or consenting for the implementation, and there has to be at least 51% of the total number of rooms. And I don't see April Point Resort on there, which had 56, which was the largest. There was High Point Resort, which was 22, which was the next largest. So I don't, if it was said that it was unanimous, I don't think it is. And I did actually hear from a resort operator there who was asking about it. I said, I don't actually know anything about the status of it, but that I would pay attention to it when it came through. I just, the concern that was raised was what can we actually accomplish with $80,000 per year in terms of affordable housing stabilization for work? I don't know. That's just the big question. If that's a meaningful amount of money for the amount of extra admin it imposes on all of these operators. It's just a big old question. I don't know. So if you're saying it's unanimous, I don't think that it is. I think it's majority in this case.
I appreciate that input, and I believe that perhaps the confusion is that April Point Resort is closed. It was closed last year, and I don't believe it's opening this year either. So while it exists, it's not functional.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
So
it
on-
exists, and maybe there will be ownership that opens it up again in the future, I guess.
Dr. Sennett?
Is there any money set aside for the administration of this? I only say that because I see what our staff have to do to comply with provincial requirements, and it's quite intensive. So there's a lot of work that staff have to do to justify the continuing eligibility of this particular program. And once you create your plans, you're locked in for several years until you can revise your plans. So it's it's not as flexible as you may wish.
Director Burwini?
Thank you for that question, and I cannot actually speak to the details about that because there's a lot of words in here in this application. But I do feel that there has been consideration for that kind of thing, and I also want to point out that depending on the percentage of MRDT, whether it's 2% or 3%, I believe there's quite a lot more paperwork if you go to the higher percentage. So maybe this one has less.
Director Dahl?
I don't see anywhere what's in front of us that we're going to be the ones managing this. So, like at the city, it's a huge amount of work. I believe our tax is 2.5%. But there's a very in-depth plan that has to be done every 5 years. All of the providers have to agree to doing this. Then they have to agree. I saw on page 2 of the report that 50% of them have agreed, or the plan is to use 50% of the funds for housing. We've been trying for 7 years to get the hoteliers to agree to using MRDT towards housing. So, I would be doing some due diligence to make sure that everything that's listed in here is correct. It seems odd that something we've been trying to get for 7 years is in their first application. But we're not the ones that are managing the funds anyways, so if it's not done correctly, it's really not our problem either.
Director Von Esch?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak to this. Cortes Island was the first community in BC to use the MRDT tax 100% for housing. Some of you will remember the first board meeting that we attended, all green and eager to go. I brought this to the board and got the support, and that has since provided about $80,000 a year to the Housing Society, which for a small housing society, it makes a huge difference. And I haven't heard any feedback on the paperwork side of things from the Housing Society that receives the funding. I think it's a great program, and excited to see this happening in Quadra.
Director Burwini, for last word.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chair. Well, I think perhaps just speaking to the question about funding, workforce stabilization, housing, a lot of providers on Quadra Island really feel that need. And they know it. They're seasonal businesses, and there's a lot of pressure to find adequate housing for everybody that they need. So I think housing was recently added. So for applications that were previously in there would be requiring consent to change, whereas this one, the way that the Discovery Islands Chamber of Commerce presented the application was with a share for housing, and that really came out of the economic diversification planning process that the Chamber engaged the entire community in last year. And during that significant community engagement and the project that was done in collaboration with the Webekai Nation, housing really surfaced as one of the #1 issues for everybody. So including it and moving forward on this was a decision of the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm really grateful for. And they will be, according to this motion, the eligible entity. So they're the ones that are, maybe they'll have to change their plan in 5 years and change it for more administration, but they are comfortable with the way it is now, and so am I.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 10. Does anybody need 10 pulled?
I can just move receipt. 10.
Please.
Move receipt of the correspondence from the Rural Islands Economic Partnership regarding the Communities Talking Pilot Project.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Von Esch, Q.
Thank you, Chair. 2026 Cortez Housing Survey. I just wanted to bring this to the board. This is a the second time we've done a housing survey. We did one 2 years ago, so we used very similar questions this time with some additional questions added, and we really worked hard to get as many people as we could to fill it out. Last 2 years ago, we got 260, and as many people know, in rural communities, that's often hidden, so it's great to be able to see this data. The other question I did ask, leading up to the question of whether Cortez continues to opt into the primary residence requirement for short-term rentals, we asked that question. That came out in support. Another question, which I've discussed with a lot of you around the board table, is an empty homes tax. On Cortez, we have 240 empty homes, which is about a third of the homes on Cortez that are empty for most of the year. And strong support for an empty homes tax on Cortez, although not the empty homes tax that the province currently has. We're looking at something more modest that would go directly to the Housing Society, but that's sort of a long-term project. Another interesting stat, I think the most commented stat I got on it was that of the property owners that filled out, 64% don't have a mortgage. Which was interesting, but 15% of people who do hold mortgages are paying more than 33% of their income towards their mortgage, and about 4% are paying more than 50%. So there is some stress in that demographic as well. Looking at renters, we're looking at almost 50% of renters on Cortez who are paying more than 33% of their income, with 20% of renters paying more than 50% of their income towards rent. So some significant stressors there. The survey also identified the missing amenities on Cortez in people's homes. About 70% of people aren't missing any amenities, but 30% of people on Cortez are missing, key amenities, whether that's heat, power, water, indoor toilet. So there's interesting information there to be able to act on. I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention, to the public record. This is something that was done in partnership with the Cortez Housing Society, and both the Housing Society and myself will be using this data to help make progress on housing on Cortez. Thanks very much.
Okay, on receipt, we need a mover and a seconder, please.
I will move receipt of Director Vanesh's report.
Second? Director Sinnott?
I'm going to suggest, Director Von Esch, you've got a great opportunity to try something I think should be considered, either advocating with the province for exceptions to residential tenancy, or considering a service that could provide a level of indemnification protection for small landlords. I think what's happening is that many people under number 5, they talk about people would like to play a role in expanding rental supply, but there's a lot of risks now because the Residential Tenancy Act makes it almost virtually impossible to use your property again if you so need to, because there's so many rules that prevented renovictions and various types of terminations, like even having fixed term tenancies. And I think a lot of people in small rural areas, particularly if they have a secondary home, maybe want to keep their property available for, the Christmas season or the summer season for visiting family, and would be willing to enter into 4 or 5 month lease rentals, but can't under the current legislation. So there's two things I would always consider: whether or not there's a potential for a service that would provide some sort of protection for very small landlords, so that if they had a difficult tenant who trashed their place, or if they had a person that overheld for months, that they would have an indemnification and protection to their pocketbook, because no one can afford even 1 month's lost rent in these types of situations when they want to get into becoming a small landlord. And 2, suggesting to the province that in such cases, that such fixed term tenancies, given the seasonal nature of the islands, may be something that they might want to exempt for particular defined classes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Director Sinnott. I meant to talk to that statistic as well. 93 people in the survey identified that they either have a house, a cabin, or space on their land to rent a spot for a tiny home, and they're not comfortable doing that. And I think it's really clear when people think about housing, they think, oh yeah, renters, but really the cheapest housing is the housing that's already there. And when people are sitting with empty housing because they're scared to rent for all the reasons you just mentioned, I think that's a really good point. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Great. So, Director Rice?
I've got one question. Just curious, with the 60% support on the empty home tax, how many of those were actually people that have empty homes?
It's hard to say exactly, but we did have almost 70% of the people who still filled out the survey were property owners. We had the survey open for a month. We mailed it to everybody. We advertised it on all the social medias and local websites, and we showed up at community dinners and
Okay.
Friday markets.
Okay, follow-up question on that. I happen to know that some of the homeowners that have their homes empty wouldn't have received any correspondence from you because they don't live there, they live over here. So how do you get in touch with those individuals?
Yeah, I think the best way that I can do it for the last 3 years, really pushing people and letting people know that I have a newsletter that goes out every month where I correspond with everybody, and there's lots of folks on that newsletter list that don't live there full time. And I guess ultimately, if local people want to stay connected with what's happening in local government, there is some responsibility in property owners to look at local websites and see what's happening. But yeah, I think you're right. Not everybody in the community who owns property filled out this survey. We reached 35%, which is statistically significant. And I think as far as an empty homes tax goes, I'm not looking at the 1% empty homes tax that the province has. So a property in Cortez is, average property is $700,000. A 1% tax is $7,000 a year. What I would be more looking for is like something like $1,000 or $2,000 a year. $1,000 a year, if we raise $200,000 a year, our housing society right now is building two bedroom units for $225,000. So, a modest empty homes tax could basically build a 2-bedroom unit of housing every year.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Director Senate.
Again, I'm not terribly fond of these empty home taxes because I think what's driving people to leave their homes empty is, again, because they can't enter into limited term leases anymore. So actually, if you want to increase the supply, I think you try and get that legislative exception, allow for limited term leases on certain properties and allow for your housing to grow where people can stay for, 8, 9, 10 months. And then the 2 months that the people want to use it for recreating, they have that availability. That's just my view is there's sugar, not so much vinegar.
Yeah, I think that's part of the solution. And I think we also need to recognize there's lots of people that don't want to have renters. They want to have their summer cottage, they want to have their summer home for family and friends, and that's fine. And I think a small contribution towards building housing on the community is a good thing. And I'm glad to see that this survey is in support of that.
Okay. All in favor?
Sorry, Chair, I just had one quick question, if I may. And that was around the demographics in this report with the percentages of homes that are owned versus rented. And I was curious if the demographics of that responded to the survey sort of are similar to the statistics that are collected by Stats Canada.
Yeah, so I think this is slightly higher. I think the Stats Canada is around 65% property owners, 35% renters. So this is slightly higher, but it's certainly in the range.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice.
Release of a SRD interest in Covenant Electoral Area D. Let the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's covered.
I'd like to move item B, that the chair and the corporate officer be authorized to execute the Form C charge to release the regional district interest in the Covenant CB 194794.
Second.
Dr. Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's passed.
Did we actually make a motion to even accept the agenda?
You weren't here.
Okay, you must have been gone.
No, you're just.
Closed session. Director Colburn.
You were late.
Oh. Thanks. The report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's covered.
And B, that the meeting be closed to the public to consider matters deemed to fall within the parameters of subsections 91A, E, F, G, I, K, N, and O of the community charter.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is passed. Thank you. Do you guys want to take a quick 10?
Just a second.
Yeah. Okay.